So thank you very much to Eric and to Elizabeth. And next I'm going to invite Val Naylor to come and give us an introduction to the Evangelistic Fellowship with which Charles and Elizabeth will be doing their ministry. The group is called Counties, so please do.
Well, it's lovely to be here, and it's lovely to be here on this occasion with Charles and hopefully Elizabeth, and hopefully the rest of the family. I'll tell you a little bit about Counties. It's quite a mystery to some people. Some people haven't heard of Counties at all. But some of you may have been involved for many, many years. So I'll start at the beginning. It actually began back in 1899. Counties has been going since 1899. And it was started by a group of men who prayerfully were anxious to reach out into the surrounding area with the good news of Jesus Christ. And they got together and they felt led to ask for 2 evangelists to take a summer campaign, it was, in the Middlesex area and the Hertfordshire area. And that was the beginning of Counties. Now, that was 110 years ago. So it has changed a bit, it's evolved, and it continues to change. In fact, I think it keeps changing quicker and quicker and quicker, just like the world does. So there have been many, many changes over the years. But one thing that's remained the same is that the purpose of the whole organisation remains that of seeing people brought to faith in Jesus by supporting independent evangelists in the work that God has given them to do. So it's supporting independent evangelists in the work that God has brought them to do. So evangelists are not employed by counties, and that's quite a mystery to quite a few denominations. It's very well known to the Brethren movement because that's the way through missionary work and homework that's been operated. But we find now that quite a few people come into counties who are not from Brethren roots or origin, and they are not so familiar with this idea of being an independent and not being employed by counties. So how does counties support their evangelists? How are we going to support you and continue to support you, Charles and Elizabeth? And I guess the first thing I would say is prayer. Prayer is vital, and I put that first. And the evangelists bring out, this isn't, Jeff doesn't do this one, but they'll bring out a prayer information sheet from time to time, every month, with where they're preaching, what they're doing, all their activities. That's brought out in different versions so that people can pray for them. And that's what Counties is about, praying for the evangelists. Fellowship. Fellowship is so, so important. If you've got an independent person working, a couple, they need fellowship. They need support. It also is there for accountability. I think we all recognise that where people are at the forefront, that's where the devil's going to attack. And it's really important that there isn't one person going off doing their own thing without any sense of accountability to God and to other people in the organisation. Helps to ground it. We provide training, pastoral support, they have reviews, so there's quite a lot of things happening for the evangelists. They also get a monthly gift, and that is a gift according to whatever the funds are at counties, and that's reviewed, well, mostly once a year, but if the funds have gone down, then we review it more often, so that we can give a monthly gift. But that is a gift according to what there is in the coffers, really. And so that is an important part too for the evangelists. So how does counties operate? Down in the darkest areas of Wiltshire, there's a place called Westbury, where we have a head office. The head office only has a couple of full-time workers and 2 clerical help. So there's a CEO, John Wilkes, and there's an office manager, Jonathan Brooks Martin, and they have just 2 part-time helpers with all the clerical work. And that keeps everything to a minimum, keeps the costs to a minimum, so that we have a kind of out to evangelism and to the work of evangelism. So costs are kept to a minimum. There's also a head office. I don't know if you've heard of Jesus Live. I think in this area, Jesus Live has been out here to the schools. There's also someone employed to run the two trailers for Jesus Live. And there's also an exhibition called Life Exhibition, which goes out in a similar way to young people, but also older people, and is brought in by various churches to help with the spread of the gospel, the good news. So, some of these responsibilities are actually evolved down to a local group, because being out in Wiltshire and a head office and a few people, they are not the people who actually are there to support and encourage and work with the evangelist the whole time. Each evangelist has what used to be called a regional fellowship. The regional fellowship was one per county, and you had one or two evangelists per county, and they would work within that county mostly, and with the church, whatever the people in that county wanted them to do in the way of evangelism in a way, and what they visioned as well. But now counties has changed quite considerably, so that we have a lot of workers who are much more in urban areas and working with one particular church, two churches, and so that local group has become much more local to each evangelist. So Essex is a bit of an anomaly, because we've got two senior evangelists who've been there forever and a day, which is wonderful. And we've got younger evangelists, slightly younger evangelists, haven't we, Charles? You have got to the big O. So, a lot of the areas now have what is called a CLG, a Counties Link Group, and they actually perform the functions of supporting, encouraging, praying for, actually raising money for, overseeing some of the work, directing, asking if an evangelist can do this or that for them. So in a way, it's rather like it was at the beginning, where men actually had a vision for reaching out into the community, and they got in some evangelists to help them in this function. And that is still what it is today. And the regional group, the county's link group, that is so important for Charles to have around him people who are actually performing all those things, including accountability and the fellowship and everything else. Now, counties workers work in very many different ways. Now, I've got a little clip of just a few workers. It's 3 years old, so it has changed a bit, because even in 3 years we're now going to produce another one of these, because work is changing the whole time. So I'm hoping it's going to go. The fact that it's starting, that's the beginning of it, but I think we'll stop it, Charles. So there's tons more about counties that we could say, but that, if you can get a picture of what counties is like, what the county's family is like, and that is...
Full marks to Val for keeping going, irrespective.